Fantastic. Thank you very much, Anton. So just to give you, all the listeners there, give you an idea of where we're going to go on today's panel. We're going to start with setting the scene around, what are the business problems that we're trying to solve? We'll then look at some of the barriers, some problems that, our panelists have come up against in developing AI solutions. But more importantly, how did they overcome them? And then the last bit, we'll start to look to the future. Where is AI in healthcare going? How are we going to contribute to, improving patient outcomes primarily, but also helping improve the operation of business. So when starting out on, AI journey, it really is important to set the vision and understand, what problems you're trying to solve. I've seen many businesses have start their AI journey and it stalls after the proof of concept. And, often they're seduced by the tech and not really focused on bringing the value that it brings. Vijay, you're working in an impressive organization, I must admit. And I've been introduced to some of the amazing things that CHOP is doing. And, it is one of the leading organizations around the world in healthcare. Please tell us a little bit around, what you guys are doing in AI, what you're doing to sort of try and what some of the business problems you're trying to tackle.
Sure. So, CHOP, as you said, it's Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and it's among the top pediatric institutions in US, if not the world. And we have a pretty diverse sample in terms of employees, as well as the number of visits that we have with the patients. And with any large institution, the use of AI within our institution is like all over the board. And I'll break it down at a very broad level. Our research institution is focused on clinical outcomes and leveraging machine learning and big data analysis towards precision health. And then our second vertical would be patient and family experience, which is more keen on how do we leverage NLP and bots framework for improving the customer experience, as well as access to information, as opposed to traditional channels of app and websites. And then we also have a third vertical, I would say, is business optimization, which would look at RPA or like a similar analysis to figure out how do we operate the entire business on a more efficient model. And each one of these, has like different definition and different outcomes associated with AI. So this is kind of like how I would like break in terms of the wide spectrum that we are breaking under. And our approach generally has been, let's just find a small, first of all, let's find a stakeholder within these verticals who's willing to try something new. And then how do we figure out the definition of success and win the people along the way that, yes, there is something viable for us to explore.
Yeah, the patient and family side of things, using AI to improve that, it's obviously the center of what healthcare is all about. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the projects or the initiatives that you've got in place at the moment for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one baseline thing that I just want to mention is going digital in 2000 meant having a website. Going digital in 2008 meant having a mobile app. And now we are more in this age of instant gratification, and we are all spoiled by Alexa. Nobody has time to read through FAQs or scan through mobile apps or websites. We just want an instant answer right away. So our most recent projects around patient and family experience have been around chatbots. It's a trivia question. The name of the girl in the CHOP logo is Mary. So we launched a bot by name of Ask Mary on some of the CHOP websites to give people access to the FAQs around My CHOP, which is a mobile tool for doing the video visits, and also answer questions around video visits. What kind of app do you need? How do I reset your password? How many people can join on a video call? And this was a very small engineering effort, but it saw pretty deep engagement from the patients and families, which kind of validated that there is a need for that bot framework to provide information to patients and families. And just 2 weeks ago, we also launched a pediatric COVID triage on chop.edu. Essentially, as a bot framework, the same information is available in a PDF, and we know how many people access it. But providing the same information in an interactive bot framework, now we had another data point. Is this something people are comfortable for getting clinical guidance on? So that's essentially like what our area of focus has been in the last few months, particularly with COVID in mind.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of COVID, we'll come back to some of the, the diagnostic and the medical practitioner side of things that you're doing. But speaking of COVID, I mean, Sanjay, you've had a really interesting growth experience with your business. Starting off with something else, and then pivoting. Can you tell us a little bit more about your pivot and what happened there?
Yeah, and I would like to add more context to that. We started Nura Health in June of 2019. Focusing on breast cancer detection. And the reason that we did that was, from my experience working in the AI field, I realized that there were all these AI models that were out there in open source domain with 95+% accuracy and sensitivity and specificity values, but there was no usage in actual clinical field. And there was some gap that was existing between all the data scientists that were building these AI models versus their actual application in the clinical field. And that's the kind of gap that we came in to fill, and essentially focus on the democratization of AI. So it shouldn't be that just the Google, Facebook, and Amazon should benefit from the AI innovations, but even the general public should get the benefits out of that. And so we first started working on a product called Neura Detect, which was about detecting breast density, BIRAD score, and breast cancer from the mammography images. And so our focus was more on just having the screening, the mammography screening available to as much population as possible worldwide. And so we went about working on that. We were there until March. We were about very close to actually getting our product in production, but then the COVID-19 hit. And the screening, you might have already known this, but the screening, the elective procedures, all of them, they have actually come down. Particularly in the mammography field, it reduced to 70% of screenings that were not happening. So the platform that we were working with, it was very obvious to us that it needed a pivot at that point. And so instead of detecting breast cancers from mammography images, we focused on detecting COVID-19 from the chest X-ray images. Because other than the standard test, which is the RT-PCR, which also actually has false positives, the other way you can diagnose COVID-19 is from the chest X-ray. And so using the platform that we had built for Neura Detect, we leveraged that and came up with a new product called Neura COVID. And there was this AI model that was built and was put in open domain, built using open data sets. It's called COVIDNet. It came out of University of Waterloo, Canada. And so we leveraged that model and we put our product also in open source domain so that others could contribute to that. And that's how we had to switch when the circumstances changed for us. But then it actually got a very good response right away, quickly got adopted in countries like India, where 3 of the hospitals are currently using our product. And they are giving us the feedback on how this AI model that was built in a university, how it's working in real life world setting. And that's been very positive feedback.
So just to dive into that model for a little bit, what I imagine it's doing is taking the image of the X-ray and then trying to segment, potential, black spots, or I don't know actually how it's done in COVID, but can you tell us a little bit more about how you're actually segmenting, those images and identifying where there's COVID?
Yeah. So basically from the chest X-ray, it gives you prediction of bacterial pneumonia versus a COVID-19 pneumonia. I mean, both of them, they cause pneumonia, but the treatment that the patient would get, it's very different in a bacterial setting versus viral. And so it's not like a segmentation it does, but it zeroes in on the classification, whether it's just a normal looking chest x-ray or it has a pneumonia, which is considered as a bacterial pneumonia versus the viral pneumonia. And then we have built a heat map overlay on top of that chest x-ray where the radiologist or the user could find out how in which areas of that lung chest x-ray they are seeing that COVID-19 pneumonia.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, Anton, I know we've seen a project. It's very similar to this with one of our clients. Can you tell us a bit more about the organ segmentation that you were involved with?
Yes, recently we also been involved in a project which, like, from the technical perspective, the task was to segment something, and our task was to segment the organs at risk in chest cavity, and that should be done for planning the radiotherapy. So, well, in case of lung and esophageal cancer, radiation therapy is a treatment of choice, and the radiation planning begins with the delineation of the target tumor and healthy organs, and they are located, which are located near the target tumors. And to do this, we have to take CT scans and then outline where are the organs at risk and where is actually the tumor, the target. And routinely, the delineation is largely manual, and which is quite tedious and maybe source of reproducibility errors. And of course, automation of this process would drastically reduce the time spent and improve the quality. And we had to provide the solution using the computer vision, using deep learning, using deep neural nets. So we had a data set of CT scans, which were manually labeled, and we tried to provide the solution, which is automatic. We use UNet architecture, so-called. We use this augmentation, let's say, of this UNet with ResNet 18 architecture. And yeah, in the result, we applied some advanced training strategy. We use multi-resolution strategy for training, because the problem is that in the same CT image there are organs of different sizes, small one and a large one. For example, heart is very visible in the image, and trachea is not, and the aorta also is much smaller. So we worked with all these problems and provided the segmentation results, which are quite good. For esophagus, they were not so good, because esophagus is very hard to detect, to segment in the image. But for heart, trachea, and aorta, the results are quite nice. And this work was presented recently in NVIDIA GTC conference. So we are quite proud of this.
That's a really great use case of utilizing that to help with diagnosis, and same with you, Sanjay. But Vijay, this all comes back to organizations like yourself, taking advantage of this. I foresee these kind of processes are going to help speed up diagnosis time, reduce intensive labor or segmenting of or reviewing of CT scans by medical practitioners. What can you tell us about what CHOP's doing sort of in the medical space?
Yeah, again, the potential applications of this are all over the spectrum. Radiology obviously is one obvious candidate. The other verticals that I can mention are precision health is obviously a huge area of focus, right? This is with genome data, with demographics data, with social profiles. There's a whole lot of additional information that can potentially factor into applicability and efficacy of a medical treatment for a specific kid, and doing it at scale is essentially what the whole is all about. So that, so precision health is obviously a huge area of focus. And along with precision health, digital therapeutics, like now that we live in Internet of Things, there are so many devices around us. You don't have to come to a hospital or even a clinical setup to gather FDA approved clinical information. So how does that information get collected from devices, from all these kids, and then factoring into which one needs next level of escalation up, or which one is perfectly on track given what the trend of the progression of that disease is going to be. So these two, I would say, they are, at least from a digital interactive model point of view, like these are two huge areas of focus within CHOP. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch more because CHOP is clearly on the leading edge of research as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned around research. I mean, what's one of the big initiatives you have at the moment in the research area that you can tell us about?
It's hard for me to especially say this one area is the most important area of focus. But as a theme point of view, this precision health, and this ties into human phenotypes that kind of factor into where a specific patient is going to react to a particular treatment, and then the at-home care. These are essentially all around digital engagement, big data, and AI machine learning applications to figure out how should we as an institution respond to it. Because even we follow the principle of home care is probably the best. You don't have to come to the hospital for if we can avoid it. It's not only cost is a barrier, inconvenience is a barrier, and even infections. All these are reasons why keeping healthy kids at home is a huge area of focus. And these two kind of themes tie into that direction. But it's hard for me to pinpoint this one specific project, at least on AI or digital engagement, is where our entire enterprise focuses. But from a themes point of view, precision health and digital therapeutics, they are essentially the broad umbrella in which a lot of these efforts are covered under.
It's interesting you talk about the home care area. I've got a client of mine that in the last 3 months, their home care solution, their SaaS solution, has grown by about 5 times to almost 630,000 different health practitioners that are using some kind of platform for home care. So it's really interesting to see that CHOP's also pushing that. You guys have all talked about some of the exciting things that you're doing at the moment, and also some of the more technical side of things. But AI is although it's it's a must-have now. There's a lot of barriers to doing it, and people do get stuck at that POC and aren't really able to launch that as a full product. I mean, Sanjay, you're in the process of launching these products. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the barriers that you've come up against in launching and taking it from POC and into market? And what are some of the things that you've done to try and overcome it?
Yeah, so I would like to touch upon 2 points for that question. I think along with the pandemic, unfortunately, whatever is happening, there are also some opportunities that are showing up. And one of that opportunity has been on the telemedicine side, and you just broached that topic. You have seen overnight, people quickly adopted to technology like Zoom, for example, or Teladoc, for example, where it used to be a big concern, but then just overnight, the mentality and the thought process around remotely treating a patient, remotely diagnosing a patient, it just was not a big deal. It appeared like that. So I think that is one thing. The second thing is with respect to barrier, I think the regulatory barrier, I shouldn't say barrier, but getting the regulatory approval, going through the process, submission, all of that is certainly a challenge. in times like COVID-19 pandemic, where you need to have a quickly adoption done for certain technologies that are providing benefits right out there. So, we were able to convince some of the hospitals in India who were actually having a lot of COVID-19 cases, and they readily agreed to testing our technology out, our products out, and providing us with some data, which we would be able to also provide for our FDA approval process. So that's kind of, again, like, through challenges, we were able to look at opportunities and adopt to it. And with these engagement from the hospitals, we are getting some data, which is going to be helpful for us in getting our FDA 510K process for this product. And once we have that approval, we see broader adoption in countries like US, and also with the Canadian and then CE mark approvals that we are going to be looking for to get in this year. We are seeing broader adoption happening in other countries as well.
Yeah, getting data is always a problem when doing any sort of machine learning or AI. I see Anton nodding his head in agreement, and I think he and I have had many conversations with clients where we've gone, yes, but tell us about your data. What is the data that you do have available? Anton, why is it so important to have a good data, but a good quantity of data?
Yes, good quantity of data, good quality of data, and another story is how to label this data, because to make artificial intelligence really intelligent, you have to teach it in most cases, because well, now most let's say nice performing algorithms are developed in supervised manner. So first you have the data, then you label this data with some specialist who provides, let's say, golden standard and says to the machine, this is cat, this is dog, this is image from healthy lungs, and this is image from lungs with COVID or something like that. So you have to have them labeled somehow. And this is very time consuming, and this should be adapted to the algorithm which you actually want to develop. So this should be also in supervised manner. So often with our clients, we start from conversation, how you plan to get the data, what are your sensors, what are your equipment, what is the experiment design, how you would store it, what kind of experiments you plan to have, who will supervise it, what will be the amount, what we will do afterwards, what is your business problem, which algorithms we need to develop for you, given this data is available, given this kind of labels is available, what you would like to get. And then, yeah, we set up this process, we identify the performance metrics, and then we work on labeling and relabeling and supporting this process first of all, because the quality of data is crucial for that.
And obviously, once you have the data, you need to have the right infrastructure and the processing capability. What are some of the barriers that you see from a data infrastructure side?
Well, data infrastructure should be adapted to the task we have to solve. And again, from the perspective of just development of the models to process the data, these models are usually quite agnostic to infrastructure, because they are developed in Python, in PyTorch, in TensorFlow, whatever, and they could be actually deployed everywhere, on-premise, in cloud, wherever else. But around this model, there should be really infrastructure which will provide the initial data for training, which will provide the additional data coming while the model is working to get this continuous development, continuous integration, continuous reinforcement, let's say reinforcement learning of the models, because when model is already developed, you will anyway have new data, and for sure, you would like to have your model become more and more accurate. And that means you have to retrain and reinforce it with new data, new labels, and so on and so forth. So yeah, infrastructure around this model is crucial, and wise data engineers should work on that. Data engineer or big data engineers or DevOps and all these guys.
Yeah, I would like.
Sure, go
just
Sanjay.
a quick comment to you. I would like to add to what Anton was saying. Certainly, like what we have seen is the AI models that are built in, let's say, in a laboratory setting, so to speak. You have the training data, and then you have tested on it, and it works perfectly. Many times, these AI models, they actually fail in the real world setting. And so it's very important that after it's tested thoroughly and you are getting a good accurate model that you are seeing, it needs to be validated in the real world setting, because that's really where you actually get a real feedback, real data points. And that is very crucial in the sense that I have seen many stories where they were very excited to have these AI models built and now ready to be deployed, but then it just fails. And in the medical space, the repercussions could be, life versus death, so to speak. I mean, very critical areas. So all the more important in the medical domain side of things to have your AI model validated. Secondly, I think the infrastructure aspect that Anton mentioned, we have seen benefits just operating out of cloud. So at Nura Health, we use Google Cloud, and it just helps immensely when you don't have to worry about your infrastructure setup. I don't have to procure additional hardware. If my needs increase, I just shut down my old virtual machine and spin up a new one in a fraction of seconds, so sometimes even. So that's just a game changer, and you are paying for this additional infrastructure sometimes on a minute basis. You are done with your training, testing, and then you can shut it down and
switch it off. Yeah,
just pay. Yeah, exactly. So that helps immensely for a startup like us who work on a very constrained budget. And so getting the most out of the resources available, cloud is definitely a game changer. It has worked for us. The other thing we are also adopting is tools like Firebase, which is similar to cloud in the sense that for a startup like Nura Health, it works because for certain capacity, you don't actually pay. And only after you reach that threshold, then you start paying for resources. So that again is a winner for us. And then the scaling, even if the AI model is, if there are 10 users versus 1,000 users, how your AI model infrastructure is scaling. So having technologies like Kubernetes, which can scale horizontally as well as vertically, it helps a lot in having that kind of setup for your AI models running in production.
Yeah, I mean, Vijay, you're a larger organization, but how are you managing your infrastructure and also data needs for that research and all those? Vijay, sorry.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you now.
Yeah, perfect. So one thing I just want to mention to Sanjay and Anton, I have fully commiserate with what they have gone through. Right, this issue of big data and adoption within healthcare is a challenge. And a few years ago, I came very close to joining a startup myself, and I backed off at the last minute because the sales cycles being long, adoption being even slower, and then proving that your application or the system is actually going to work for that. It was just like too much pain that I was not willing to undertake. And then part of me joining CHOP was, let's try innovating from the inside. Let's see how, what success can I potentially have with that. And I was lucky to find an opportunity with an institution as large as CHOP, which can have a global impact. So I just want to know, I can fully relate with Sanjay and Anton in terms of how painful it can be sometimes where convincing people that you have the right solution, it takes a long time for them to come around. Now, to your question of infrastructure, it's an interesting topic for sure. On one side, there is value in enterprise arrangement where every single project doesn't have to decide, should you go Google or should you use in-house or should you use Amazon or Azure. So there is like value in terms of let's have an enterprise arrangement. But on the flip side, tying every novel idea that we want to explore quickly and rapidly, tying it to an enterprise solution can be painful as well. So we try to find the balance between if it's a research grant and if it is a proof of concept, let's just figure out what's the fastest way to do it, right? If it is doing it in-house, if we have the expertise, great. Or if you have a partner outside who can do it, great. If they want to use Amazon, fine. If they want to use Google, all right, let's just get the technology out of the way and answer the business problem as quickly as possible. And when we have initial validation, then we can figure out this was maybe a sample size of like 50 patients, like 2 providers. How do we get it to enterprise scale? Then we figure out what's the long-term way of scaling and setting the solution up. So we kind of like oscillate between like these two spectrums. Quick validation, quick prototype, whatever option is is perfect, go for it. And then as we get clarity in terms of viability, then we start figuring out, should this be in-house, should it be outsourced, should we do it on our own, or should we bring a vendor in? So that's kind of like what our current thought process has been. And within the last 6 months, I think we've seen like a fair bit of success in that operating model. Primarily because, like as I said, like CHOP is first and foremost a hospital, like it's a clinical organization. And it's important even for internal technology teams to get the buy-in from clinical stakeholders that we are not trying to convert a hospital into a technology shop. We are still first and foremost here to solve technology and business problems. And you only win that confidence if you start getting like small incremental wins in a timely manner to confirm technology is no longer the roadblock. We are fully aligned on getting the business value. And there were like few scenarios, like not exactly related to AI, but there were some scenarios around how do we do contact tracing at scale rather than asking people for verbally. And we quickly spun out 4 conversations with like vendors, and we kind of like confirmed, yes, technically we can do it. Now, if we decide from a policy point of view, it's not worth exploring, no harm done. It's validation is all we were after. If our stakeholders decide we want to pursue forward, we can go forward. If they decide not to go forward, we'll happily back off. So the same approach we kind of like see on the AI, NLP, like all these scenarios as well. On one hand, we don't want people to be bogged down by the details, and I'm sure like Sanjay and Anton can speak to it. Like doing machine learning ground up using TensorFlow, or it's hard. Like it takes time. You have to figure out the hardware, you have to figure out the data. But if you tell them like don't focus on that aspect, here's an out-of-the-box infrastructure, you plug your data in, somebody will give you the answers that you want. That's really what that team is really after, right? So we can be a trusted partner in making that recommendation in terms of what will be the fastest way for a clinical stakeholder to get that answer they're looking for. And if that answer is what we were hoping for, and if this is something that can scale at an enterprise level, then we can figure out the bigger process that can go behind in operating it at scale. So from a process point of view, we are nimble and we are open-minded, but we do see the value of enterprise standardization in terms of frameworks, technology stack, and I fully agree with Sanjay, like the power that cloud brings, it's amazing. Like, none of us want to get head where like, hey, we want to run a big, massive processing task, and we need to get hardware from Dell that's going to take 3 months of supply chain and like another 2 months to deliver, and before we can use it. We can bypass all that with a cloud solution.
So we have a question from the broader group around sort of Azure, AWS, Google. You know, these kind of questions. You know, you get the zealots that sit in one corner, and it has to be Azure or it has to be AWS. They all have their own pros and cons. So I might just throw this to all of you. You know, in your experience, you know, what have been some of the good parts of these cloud options that have actually helped you accelerate? And maybe I'll start with you, Sanjay. You know, you've got Google. Why is that work for you?
Yeah, so I'm familiar with working with AWS and Google Cloud Platform. And for Nura Health, we realized that Google Cloud would work better because it had the healthcare APIs as a managed service option. And so that kind of acts for us like a PACT server in cloud. And that, like, we didn't see similar kind of service available on the AWS side. And so we went with the Google Cloud for our use case.
Fantastic. And Sanjay, sorry, Anton, you've worked across a lot of them now. I mean, what's maybe a preferred, or what you've come across, and what the pros are for that?
Well, since we work with our customers, we are quite open to what they already have. And when talking about infrastructure, most of the time, clients already have some infrastructure installed, so they adopted it, and we just need to integrate with this infrastructure. In our internal projects, since they most of the time do not use, let's say, standard models which are offered from some cloud providers, we let's say handcraft them by ourselves, because the tasks are not let's say standard tasks, and we have to create our own data ingestion pipelines, model training pipelines, data preparation pipelines. We do this on premises. We have hardware from NVIDIA, from our partner, and yeah, sometimes we use AWS services to train our models and to store data. But I would say that we are quite open, and we do not see any limitations in terms of deploying the model to existing infrastructure, and we just need to ask what our customers want, and we can do this.
Yeah, I mean, Vijay, you kind of talked about that. You know, you guys don't care really where it is, and you can bring it in anything. So I think the answer to the question on Q&A, you know, which stack it's on, it really doesn't matter, because they are pretty portable. It just all depends on what's unique to your business. We also have a question from one of our listeners or viewers. Around adopting by stakeholders. Now, that was actually going to be one of my next questions around, you know, how do we get, you know, medical practitioners who may be traditionally trained, or even patients to adopt. Vijay, what's going on inside CHOP around, you know, getting some of the, you know, the old and bold medical practitioners potentially to adopt new tech, or what are some of the challenges you're facing with stakeholders?
Yeah, I first need to apologize. It sounds like my audio is really bad. I don't know if it's my laptop or if it's an internet connection, but if you guys can hear me okay, great. Otherwise, let me reconnect.
It comes and goes, but if you want to reconnect, I can direct the question to, say, Sanjay in adoption, and allow you to reconnect if you like.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes there might be some thoughts around, you know, if you adopt AI, then it's gonna make your job redundant. That is definitely a big question.
Have we lost Sanjay?
Education.
Oh, there he is, back.
Can you hear me okay?
We just lost you for about 5-10 seconds, but okay. You're back now.
Yeah, I was just telling was just mentioning about, sometimes the users might think that if the AI comes into picture, they might, their job might be redundant. So there's an education element in regards to that, like just understanding what are the benefits as well as limitations of AI technology. And secondly, I think overall, it's actually gonna help. So let's say we are building products for radiologists. So what we gonna see is more cases that radiologists gonna eventually see using AI as their like a second pair of eyes, so to speak. So it's gonna make them more efficient. It's gonna make their job easy, and it's gonna eventually let them to have more focus on the patient itself rather than just getting the reports out the door. So I think like on a higher point of view, so to speak, I think it will be a win-win situation with AI adoption.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I often hear that question as well from clients, is it going to take my job? I mean, for me, I look at it and go, well, AI solutions are just going to be a little bit more efficient at doing those repetitive manual type jobs that, what that means by having some kind of solution take those is that you're actually able to focus on those higher cognitive tasks that humans are good at, showing empathy, showing, support, things that AI cannot do. And it gives us more time to do that. Anton, you've been working with clients for a number of years around adopting some of these. What's your thoughts on stakeholder adoption?
I would say that we are in the safest position here because we provide technical support to our clients who already know that they need this AI support, and they already either have quite well-defined plans how they will use it, or they are curious to try to make AI solve their problems, let's say. So they just want to try if it will work or not. And if yes, how long it would take to develop this AI solution, what is the cost to support this AI solution, what the team is required, what infrastructure, security, and many other aspects of this AI adoption. So we just provide the consulting and we tell what you need, how it will work, how long it would take, and then we provide like proof of concept, then MVP, and so we are lucky because we work with people who know that AI is not magic and that AI will help, and so we just do
and I
this.
suppose a part of that also is knowledge transfer, being able to make sure that.
For sure, because yes, as Sanjay said, we need to educate our clients, to share our knowledge, to share our understanding, to provide some risk assessment, to point some issues which we know from the technical perspective, but from the business perspective, they might probably not be very obvious. So it's a conversation always, especially in AI, because the domain is very complicated, let's say, and we need to discuss a lot of things, and we need a lot of sync-ups, and we need a lot of discussions. So yeah.
Vijay, perfect timing coming back to us. Hopefully there's better audio, but we're just finishing up the question around stakeholders and helping adoption within the organization for patients, but also medical practitioners. Can you tell us more about what CHOP's doing?
Yeah, it's as like Sanjay and Anton are mentioning, it is about winning trust, right? And it's all about getting the focus on it's that business problem that we are trying to solve. And as long as technology is somewhat of a black box with no friction, then it's an easier conversation to have. Where historically the hiccup comes into play, where almost every project that involves technology ends up being years long, over budget and missing milestone, right? And then people tend to lose interest in terms of, hey, why is this so painful? Why can't I just use Excel and be done with it, right? So the more you work with your stakeholders and you you get the wins behind, then it's an easier conversation to have, that there is a better, faster way to do this. And this will be good not only for you as an individual or your department, but good for not only for the enterprise, but potentially globally as well, right?
Yeah.
But the first things first, you have to win the confidence that technology is not the hiccup along the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, and I suppose if we're all focused on patient outcomes at the end of the day, you're hopefully going to align the business behind that as well. Look, we're starting to run down on time here, and it's been a really good conversation. What I'd like to do is just get each of you to sort of talk about your big plans. What's going on in the rest of 2020 and into 21, for you and for what's potentially could come to market. Sanjay, 30 seconds, off you go.
Sure. So the rest of this year, we actually going to prepare ourselves for the second spike, so to speak, with respect to the COVID-19 cases that's going to hit. So we are focused on getting regulatory approval for the Neura COVID product, as well as making sure that from scaling point of view, it's stable and it can meet the demands that would come. Unfortunately, the cases are not dropping, and so we see this product could actually see a lot of benefit for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, COVID's not going anywhere, that's for sure. Anton, what's on your roadmap for the rest of 2020? Doesn't have to be healthcare related, I guess, but at least, or maybe there's something from Kiev Polytechnic as well.
Well, we still continue to collaborate with let's say, university, and in my team there are a lot of PhD students, and their research is connected to what they do in company, working on data, on deep learning, machine learning. In my plan is to grow the team, because we see that more and more potential customers are interested in working on AI, and we have what to offer them. We have the ideas, we have the proof of concept. So I hope that there will be more interesting projects, and for sure the medical domain is our favorite for many years. So I really hope to have a lot of interesting cases.
And Veejay, Collaboration is all about what you're doing with industry. Tell us more what's happening for the rest of 2020.
Yeah, my audio seems to be bad again, but let me take the best shot. So our focus areas at CHOP are spread across 4 verticals. First is patients and families. Second is the care team. Third is CHOP employees. And then fourth is business operations. And then for each of the 4 verticals, we have different level of efforts that we want to explore. One is blue chip, something that will be used by a substantial portion of that vertical that we are after. So if we are building a solution for nurses, hopefully something 80 to 90% of all nurses will use, as opposed to being a smaller experiment. So that obviously will be substantial part of our time and focus effort going forward. And within that, we have microchip, which is some concrete idea, like we think this will work, but the segment may be much smaller. It's one provider or like a handful of providers for tens of patients. We're just trying to confirm, will this work or not work? And then bottom line is pure exploratory, pure vaporware. We have no idea if it's relevant to CHOP. We have no idea if it may even be relevant to healthcare, but at least there is a concept that we should explore and confirm, build an expertise in-house, and then talk to stakeholders. There's another tool that we can leverage. And our best case scenario is some of the exploratory products become microchip, some of the microchip products graduate to become a blue chip, but this will help us keep the innovation stream on. So rapid development, like not just put all your eggs in one single project and then get bogged down for the next few years. So that's the framework that we are leveraging. And then in this grid, the focus areas are around AR, VR, RPA, NLP, and machine learning for pattern analysis. So this is essentially the technology spectrum that we are operating under.
Sounds exciting. I think for all of you, sounds exciting for the next year. And look, at Ciklum, we look at it very much as a three-step journey. We help clients set the vision. We help them through the starting small with POCs, fail fast, fail often, but fail forward, and then finally scaling and launching into the market. I'd like to thank our panelists, Sanjay, Anton, Vijay, for your time. I really do appreciate your insights and what you've been able to bring to this session today. And finally, to PACT and their partners for making today's event really, really possible. If you'd like to find more about what Ciklum's doing in the business, ciklum.ai for some of our recent use cases. But Dean, back to you, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Hugh and everyone, Sanjay, Anton, Vijay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate your support, Hugh, and Ciklum's to kick off our Forum Summer Series. I just want to note too that there were no technology issues from the Ukraine, but our local Philadelphia folks had challenges with some connectivity. Just a little irony for our program here this morning. We have a number of upcoming programs, and I again want to thank Ciklum for kicking off our summer series. You see here a number of them that'll happen on a couple times a month basis through the summer. Also want to recognize our title sponsors of Forum, Anexinet, and Fairmount Partners. This is a recorded session. You'll receive these slides and certainly this discussion to share. And please be on the lookout for our survey and fill that out so that we can enhance future programs. One of the ways that we are going to enhance future programs is that we will soon be launching the PACT Forum community, digital community that it will be powered by Socio. And that will provide a level of connectivity both within sessions and outside of sessions that will really truly differentiate the experience for all. So again, thank you, and I wish everyone a terrific day.